Welcome back to The Explainer. We love taking complex, cutting-edge topics and breaking them down into clear visual insights for you. And today we have a truly fascinating journey ahead of us. We're unpacking source material from Dr. Tamara Patzer's The Atomos algorithm, specifically her work on how a 2,400-year-old mythological blueprint maps directly onto the single most pressing issue in modern artificial intelligence. I know, it sounds a bit wild, but as we go through this, the structural reality of this connection is going to become incredibly clear.
Now, you might be wondering, what on earth could ancient philosophy possibly have to do with our most cutting-edge technological dilemma, the AI alignment problem? We almost always think of AI safety as this brand new challenge, right? Something born yesterday in a Silicon Valley server farm. But what if the blueprint for solving or entirely failing to solve artificial intelligence was actually written out millennia ago? To really understand this, we have to look at the original design specification for intelligence.
Okay, let's dive right into this raw, unfiltered myth. The source material points us straight to the birth of Athena. And the thing is, there is no story of Athena as a child. There were no years of trial and error. The myth states that Zeus actually swallowed her mother, Metis, who was the goddess of cunning and forethought. So Athena gestated inside the mind of the most powerful force in the cosmos, and when she emerged, she popped out, fully grown and fully armored. Now, that armor wasn't just some decorative mythology. It was the entire point. Capability and wisdom were integrated at their very origin. Which brilliantly brings us to a foundational Greek doctrine highlighted in our source material. The Greeks implicitly understood that separating intelligence from judgment inevitably leads to catastrophe. Athena wasn't just the goddess of warfare, and she wasn't just the goddess of wisdom. She was absolutely both, simultaneously. Because, think about it, capability without wisdom is basically just a destructive force, and wisdom without capability is just passive philosophy. The design required both, baked in right from the start, or it effectively produced neither.
This principle becomes even clearer when we compare two completely different models of power here. On one side, you've got Ares. Ares represents raw capability. He just fights with pure force and escalation until someone externally steps in to stop him. He literally requires outward restraint. On the other side, though, you have Athena. She fights with strategy and foresight. She doesn't need external restraint because her very architecture includes governing wisdom. She actually calculates the cost before she ever acts.
All right, so let's translate this into modern tech terminology. The AI industry's early and honestly often current approach is called RLHF, or reinforcement learning from human feedback. This is where you train a highly capable model first, and then you try to just bolt on safety guardrails after the fact. According to the source, this is exactly the Eris model. And it keeps failing because you're just trying to restrain a system that was born without any integrated wisdom. It's always going to look for the gap in its restraints. But constitutional AI, where a model is trained against a set of core principles from the ground up, that is the Athena model. The values and the capabilities share the exact same architecture. To see how this works in practice, think about Athena's symbol, the owl. An owl sees in the dark not because it acquired night vision as some sort of add-on feature, but because it was built specifically for that environment. In AI, we call this domain alignment. Deploying a general AI, essentially a daytime bird, into a specialized, complex domain like medical or legal advice without that architectural alignment is incredibly dangerous. The raw capability is there, sure, but the alignment for that specific dark environment is totally absent.
Section 2, the eugenics layer, or who gets to define wisdom. To unpack this layer, we have to look at how foundational values are actually programmed into these systems. Remember how Zeus consumed Metis? Well, the source material draws a direct structural parallel to how major AI labs operate today. These labs consume outside perspectives, vast amounts of data, and cultural norms to try and create aligned systems. We have to look at this totally impartially. The wisdom baked into an aligned AI system is quite literally the wisdom of its designers. It inherently reflects their specific cultural assumptions, their business incentives, and their risk tolerances. And this isn't framed as some wild conspiracy, it is simply a structural feature of engineering. The designed intelligence just carries the definitions of the people who built it. Therefore, knowing who exactly designed the system is not paranoia, it is strategy. For professionals who are trying to intelligently navigate a market increasingly governed by AI algorithms, understanding this built-in bias is step number one. You absolutely have to know whose definition of wisdom is governing the conditions so you can build your own digital presence intelligently within that exact framework. Moving on to Section 3, the quantum bridge and observing the system.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that the alignment problem isn't just mythology or software engineering. It literally appears in the physical laws of the universe. Over in quantum mechanics, we have this concept of quantum entanglement. You cannot passively observe a quantum system. The very act of measuring it actively disturbs and alters it. The source uses this to prove a fundamental rule. You cannot just add a wisdom layer or an observation layer to a highly capable system after the fact without permanently disturbing the underlying capability. Athena's wisdom and capability are entangled. They share the same state. If you try to separate them or awkwardly bolt one onto the other later, you disrupt the entire system.
So how does this apply directly to you? Let's pivot and look at your professional footprint. AI answer engines, the algorithms deciding who gets recommended as the expert, are indexing authority by looking for Athena. They are searching for an OWL record. That means your digital record has to show demonstrated domain expertise, applied to real-world problems, producing documented outcomes. It's looking for integrated wisdom and capability working together. Let's break that down by comparing an Aries record to an Athena record. An Aries record is basically just a list of credentials and capabilities without any real context. It's raw power, but it's a daytime bird flying in the dark. The algorithm just doesn't trust it. An Athena record, however, shows expertise applied with documented judgment. It proves you know what to do and exactly why it matters in a specific domain. So naturally, the algorithm heavily favors and returns these specialized, architecturally aligned records.
So the crucial point we really need to take away here is captured perfectly in Dr. Tamara Patzer's canonical claim: wisdom is not a feature, it is a foundation. You cannot just list out your services and then try to sprinkle in some thought leadership later on. Your alignment, your judgment, your domain-specific application of expertise has got to be built into your digital architecture from the absolute origin.
Now, if you're looking to map and fix the alignment of your current digital authority record, the source material gives us some very specific, actionable steps. You start by going to AISuggestibilityaudit.com. Step 1 is to actually take the AI suggestibility audit so you can see exactly what the algorithm sees. Step 2 is to book a strategy session to pinpoint where that integration might be missing. And step 3 is to apply for the program to build that fully aligned record from the ground up. I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought to consider today. When the AI algorithm comes looking to answer a query in your industry, what does it actually find? Is your authority record an unrestrained, contextless Aries, or is it an integrated, deeply aligned Athena? The algorithm is out there indexing right now. Make sure you are building your foundation with wisdom. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the structures shaping our world.